Hi, I'm Lisa Eddy, your host of the Sacred Beauty Lifestyle Podcast. I'm so glad that you've made your way here and that I'm now sharing these podcasts here on YouTube. In my 25 years in the beauty industry, I have worked with thousands of women. I have witnessed so many beautiful, powerful, smart, and kind women who are hiding instead of shining. My mission is to empower you to own your true power and beauty inside and out, to be truly confident and shine through your skin. Lord knows the world needs your light. I'm committed to helping you understand the choices that you are making that are working for or against you. I'll also be sharing beauty tips and tools your mother never taught you, and together we will bust urban beauty myths. Make sure to subscribe today to receive episodes right when they are released. For those who prefer listening to the audio podcast, head over to sacredbeautylifestyle.com. That's sacredbeautylifestyle.com, and you can find the platform of your choice. Enjoy. Hello, and welcome to another episode of the Sacred Beauty Lifestyle Podcast. I'm super excited to bring to you Dr. Melissa McDonald, aka Dr. Mac. She is a sports chiropractor located in the Twin Cities with specialty training in Human Performance Center. She works with multiple teams providing sideline care with 7 years of experience. Her husband jokes that she will die on the sidelines as she might be a bit obsessed with her work. So when we can pull her away from work, she can be found painting, creating beauty. And hello, I'm so happy to be here with you today, Dr. Mac.
Hello, Lisa. Thank you for having me. I am very excited to be here today.
Yes. I really like your no direct kind of I really like your no BS, super direct way, and that you're really science backed. And though this is not a sports podcast, you have vast experience in the body and in rehabilitation and movement and what can happen to the body when we're moving and not moving. And so that's why I thought you'd be a lovely complement to the Sacred Beauty Lifestyle podcast and our listeners here.
Oh, I think it's a great thing because I don't just look at athletes in the sense of those going out onto a sports field. I look at everyone as an athlete because it doesn't matter what their sport is. Their sport might be carrying all their groceries in one trip. Their sport might be going for a walk. Their sport might be going in the backyard and playing with their kids. Everyone's an athlete if they're going to move. And well, let's be honest, you're not living if you're not moving. So there are so many things we need to do. So I call myself a sports chiropractor, but really what it means is that I'm an advocate for you being able to move in life.
Oh, girl, I just love everything you just brought right now. That is so beautiful. If you're not moving, you're not living, stuck out to me, as well as everyone is an athlete. And I think that's so important. What many of you may know if you've been following me for a while, though you may not know, is I was actually married to a chiropractor. That was my was done been. So in a past life, what it feels like now. And I used to run the wellness center. And I'm bringing this up because people would come in and be like, I was just bending over to put on my sock and I threw out my back. And it was like, no, that's not where it started.
Oh, that's so true. It's so funny how we try to blame how we moved on the fundamental problem that caused issues. And even within the science realm, we have changed how we look at healing because there have been so many times, not even 5 years ago, if your back, your low back was excruciatingly painful, you'd be put on bed rest. And now we're recognizing that is the worst recommendation we could have for someone is to put them on bed rest. You have to move. I mean, this is where we even get into Newton's first law. Objects in motion remain in motion. So we have to keep you moving.
Girl, you are on fire. You've got to keep moving to keep moving. That is so imperative. It's unbelievable how far we have deviated from so many of the truths and the innate way in which our body operates. So, I mean, we're just on here a couple minutes and I'm like, yeah, speak, sister, preach.
Well, it's just, it gets so frustrating because I'll have people come into my office and they'll be like, my doctors told me I'm not allowed to squat. And I'll be like, really? And they're like, yeah. And they will have walked in and sat in a chair. And I'm like, okay, we're going to play a little game. I want you to stand up. They stand up. I'm like, okay, I want you to sit down. And they sit down. I'm like, can you do that 2 more times? And they're like, why are you doing this? I'm like, because you're standing, you're going, a sit to stand is a squat, darling. You have to be able to squat, to get in your car, to use the toilet, to sit down, to get in bed. Everything revolves around a squat. So you telling me your doctors told you that you can't squat. Are you permanently staying in a wheelchair? Are you permanently standing for the rest of your life? That's not a reasonable expectation for them to set for you. So let's talk about how we make a squat safe.
Oh, can you speak to how we make a squat safe? Is that something that requires a demo or can you talk about it?
Oh, I can talk about it. I can talk about it. See, the thing is that we're told when something hurts, we just need to rest and stop moving. And this was a misnomer that came about when the acronym RICE came out. Rest, ice, compress, and elevate. And well, that was great. And we can get into my hatred of ice, but I have a hatred of ice, which in the middle of Minnesota makes my patients really happy when I'm like, no, 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 stop icing. We're done. Icing is dead. We need to actually move. So we have moved to an acronym called oh my God.
Okay.
Can the word stay with me? Absolutely not. But it basically means we need to optimally load. We need to optimally load the body. Now, we may need to modify how we load. So maybe you're not doing a full ass to grass squat. Maybe we're stopping at 90. Maybe we're using supports of holding onto a desk. Maybe we're changing how we shift our movement, but you're still doing the movement. And while we rebuild the strength, whether it be low back, whether it be knee, whether it be ankle, neck pain, whatever, while we rebuild the space with which you can move safely, we modify your activity that way. And this is where everyone's an athlete. Our end goal of rehab, our end goal of our treatment is going to look a little different if your goal is to walk up and down stairs without pain versus go onto a football field and catch a ball. We're going to have different activities that we make priorities in our rehab that way. But everyone is going to start with the same thing, which is what is our safe space of movement? How do we make it bigger so that we can continue to live and move and get on with our day?
Yes, thank you. It's like meeting people where they are is also what I'm hearing, right? And then rebuilding from there. Yeah.
It is because there's so many times that within physical medicine of treating someone, our primary goal is to stop them from doing activities. Well, I don't agree with that because people are using these activities for a multitude of reasons beyond just physical health. It could be a component of their mental health. So if I'm telling a runner, hey, you need to stop running, I best have a darn good reason why, because there is a spiral effect that is going to occur within their self as I take away part of their identity. So if I can better manage their problem through changing their load. So, like, okay, you're having knee pain with 10-mile runs. Well, what if we changed it to a 5-mile run? And maybe we modify by keeping some of the movement if someone has like a stress fracture in their foot, because that can happen. Maybe we have them run in a 0G environment, which you might be going, Dr. Mack, I don't have access to 0G environment. Well, if you have access to a pool and you put a float on, you can go into the deep end and you're in a 0G environment and you can run without the impact affecting your fracture. So there are ways we can modify your activity to work with you. So what's going to be the best answer that can go to everyone? I don't have it because it is so specialized to you as a person. because everyone has their own goals, their own needs, and their own things that they can't give up. If I tell you you can't lift over 25 pounds and you have a 35-pound toddler, I'm sorry, you're not going to follow my recommendation. So, how can I help you do the activity that you can't give up as safely as possible?
Oh, I love that so much, including the way you just wrapped that up with the toddlers at home that we need to be handling, picking up. And not only that, as we grow up, as we grow wiser, I like to call it, then we're also looking at take caring for our grandchildren, hopefully, right? And wanting to be able to do that with agility and grace, and to be able to play with these, with the kiddos, like as if we're still kiddos, because we never really age at heart, right?
Absolutely not.
But I also think it's a really important piece that you brought in about the mental healing, relief component in the physical activity. I think that was a major issue, self included here, with the big shutdown that we just went through in the world. I still have lost my favorite classes. Dance is my medicine. That's my method. I can't be in my head when I'm dancing. It's kind of like a walking or moving meditation, right? For some people,
Mhm.
running or different activities, so when we lose that, we can absolutely downward spiral, right? And not be the best version of ourselves everywhere else that we need to show up. There's such a huge connection, right? In lifestyle, in the ways that we show up for our loved ones and for ourselves. You said something earlier that I want to go back to because I think you were really passionate about it. And I don't think I've heard people speak about this much. You hate ice.
I
Ice
do.
age is
Oh.
dead. Is that what I heard? We're not in the ice
Yeah.
ages anymore.
So this ice, it's one of those things where we're starting to look at how our body naturally heals and why we need inflammation to actually successfully heal. And I'm not talking like the autoimmune inflammation that is attacking our body. I'm talking about the acute, you're walking, you roll your ankle swells up. What do we do with that? And in the years past, our first instinct has been ice it until it's not swollen and take over the counter medications to again eliminate the swelling. And then once we're out of put it in a boot. Once we're out of pain and put ourselves on crutches, like 3-4 weeks down the road, then we'll return to our sport and everything will be fine. And then all of a sudden, and that's like high school, all of a sudden we have all these 30, 40, 50-year-olds and they're like, oh, I have bad ankles. My ankles are weak. I don't have any stability. And it's like, well, no crap. We never let you actually heal. We never actually did the things necessary to care for your body effectively. So we're starting to move away from immediate icing an injury or immediate elimination of that inflammation. Now, are there times that I will use ice? Absolutely. And the one time I will use ice is in an acute, I witness, like I physically watch you hurt yourself and you're in so much pain that that puts you at risk for something else. And at that point, yeah, we'll ice to take away the pain and we may ice for like the first hour, 2 hours. But after 24 hours, we're done. We're done with that. We don't need it unless you're still in so much pain you won't do your rehab exercises. Because if you're not willing to do your exercises, well, then we'll ice and then do your rehab. But just blanket icing, absolutely not. I'm also going to, unless it's affecting your sleep, I don't want you taking anything. I want you to feel where your body's at. I don't want you masking symptoms and overdoing it. So then you cause further problems. But I also don't want you so restricted that you're not doing anything. So, like, athlete rolls their ankle, that night I'm giving them their ABCs. What are ABCs? They're using their foot to write the ABCs. And do they have to do ABCs? No, they could do song lyrics as long as they're spelling them out. Here's where you're going to use your cursive that you said you never were going to use before. Ankle rehab. That is where it's at.
That is so good. So what I'm hearing you say with the ice baby, is that the inflammation that occurs is a part of the healing process, and that we can actually interfere with that process if we over ice, if we don't let ourselves feel a little bit of the good pain in it. And I'm also hearing you say that that interferes with when we're masking it with either icing, you like that? Icing or drugs. I'm making up words up in here. Icing or drugs. And we actually then don't know where we're at. How can we make the right choice?
The right choice is to listen to a healthcare provider that has your best interest at heart. And here's what we know. I mean, I'm going to try to avoid getting into like the physiology, like when you have this medication, it
Right.
affects this cascade. And I'm going to try to avoid that. But what we do know is that ligaments and tendons, so when we roll our ankle, we're injuring a ligament. And that sprain of our ankle, ligaments aren't well vascularized, meaning it doesn't have good blood flow. You need blood to heal. So we need that inflammation bringing additional blood flow to the area so that it has all the healing nutrients, because our blood circulates the nutrients that we take in through our gut and brings it to the rest of our body. We need the blood flow to that area to actually get healing to it. Think about what ice does. What does it do? It causes vasoconstriction. It shrinks our blood vessels. It stops blood flow being able to get there. So if we continually ice that body part, we're shutting off how we get nutrients to the area. How do we expect it to heal? So when it comes to, you might be going, great, I'm 35. I rolled my ankle when I was 18. My ankles are crappy. What do I do to fix it now that I'm 15, 20 years after my injury and I need to deal with it? Well, we do have care that we can utilize that does controlled re-injury. So that's where we have our instrument scraping. That is creating controlled inflammation in the area, bringing more blood flow. Then we implement the rehab that you need, both from a balance standpoint, from a strength standpoint, also from a mobility standpoint. Because, man, dorsiflexion, that's where you bring your toes and your ankle up to your nose. Ooh, that is the first thing that goes away when you injure your ankle and don't rehab it correctly. And when you lose dorsiflexion, guess what? Somewhere else in your body has to become more mobile to compensate. And the first thing that's going to go away is knee. You're going to have to overuse your knees to compensate for the lack of mobility in your ankles. And then up the body it goes, causing problems.
Wow. Okay. So I think this is really important. If you're listening to this and you're
I know I
thinking,
went way too deep.
no, I don't think you did it all. Deep is the only way I want to go. It's the only way I roll. And I think we have a lot of listeners like that as well. We want the facts and we want to get in there and we want to be the best versions of ourselves. And being able to move is what it's all about. Like flow in your body, your chi, your energy. If one piece is shut off, another piece is compensating. You said it, right? Right there. The point is, I wanted to bring the attention to those of you listening right now. If you're thinking, oh my God, that's me. I hurt myself, whether it's your ankle, your knee, your whatever it is that you hurt yourself at a young age and never fully recovered. This is where we hire a pro. This is where we take a look at that right now and get the help that you need so that you don't later have to pay the price for that which was not treated properly. And it's not your fault, but it's your responsibility now so that you can age beautifully, gracefully, naturally, hopefully. Maybe there are some other modalities we need to use. Sometimes there is a time and a place for Western medicine, though we roll pretty holistic here. What was that modality again that you said with the
Controlled inflammation, it's scraping. So there's a couple different ways that it presents. One company has done a darn good job of branding it, Graston technique. You also have Factor or Smart Tools, but a generic term for it is instrument assisted soft tissue mobilization, which is quite a mouthful.
Yeah.
Or in a more Eastern medicine, gua sha.
Yeah.
So it
Yeah.
is just the scraping of the tissue so that you are creating heat in that area. And that controlled disruption of the skin goes slowly deeper as we work through it. It doesn't have to be hard. It doesn't have to cause bruising, although a lot of times there is some form of bruising or petechia that can occur as we scrape into that area. That's going to allow, again, that controlled re injury to then be utilized as a healing mechanism with the right rehab. I wish I could say for every ankle, you're going to do this exercise. And for every low back thing, you're going to do this. It is so specific to the person because, well, frankly, I might assign an exercise that I think is best. And you, as a patient, might go, I really hate that exercise. That exercise makes me miserable. I'm not going to do it. Well, if you're not going to do it, that's not a good exercise for you. So there are a number of ways, again, we build these systems and care specific to what you're going to do. Because the best exercise is the one that you're willing to do and utilize so that you can take control of your body again.
Yeah, the best exercise is one that you're willing to do. That is so true. It makes me wonder. I'm curious if perhaps our listeners could Google one of those modalities or devices that you mentioned, and maybe they have a locator of practitioners or something if they're not in the Twin Cities and cannot come and see you.
Oh, there is. So Graston has a provider list. Factor has a provider list. Most uh, clinics that perform this will have it on their website. Either they do IASTM, which is the instrument assisted soft tissue mobilization in an acronym form, because a
Ooh,
mouthful.
yeah.
Uh, or another way to look at it is to find a sports practitioner, just because a sports chiropractor is more likely to use soft tissue mobilization and provide rehab. So here we go. We're going to go for the long words again. The American Board of Chiropractic Sports Practitioners, the ACBSP, also has a list of providers from around the country that has their certifications. So really, there is a phenomenal way of finding things. The Forward Thinking Chiropractic Alliance, the FTCA, has a list of providers that majority of them are going to do some form of mobilization. Now, here's the pickle, and this is really only an issue for those located in America. It's that I can't guarantee your insurance will cover that technique, just because, especially if it's Medicare or Medicaid, they only cover spinal adjusting. They don't cover your exam. They don't cover rehab. They don't cover soft tissue work, which is very frustrating because it limits the access to what people need. So we're trying to change that in the legislation, but right now those are kind of what we're working with. Is you may have to pay out of pocket for that specific care and to see the right provider. I can't guarantee the person that's going to have these skills is going to be in network. I'm not. I don't want a third party who doesn't know you telling me what I can and can't do for your care.
Yeah, I understand how challenging the whole in network, out of network, how they don't really pay doctors, insurance companies don't really pay. I handled that piece as well. So, for those of you listening, I think I love that you shared the resources with our people like the way that you just did. Thank you to get the help that you need. I call it life insurance. I would rather pay to eat. My house is like 98% organic. I just finished putting the last, like removing the last spice that was not organic and put the ginger was the most recent spice that I just got was organic. This is just how we do here. And I call it life insurance. And so something like this, if you've had a past injury, you're going to pay the price of whatever charges. Our body's like a credit card, right? Whatever charges we put on it, we're going to pay the price at some point. So this might very well be the way to spend some money sometimes. So thank you for breaking that down. There's something else that you mentioned I want to go back to because I think this is also important. I often hear people say what you said. I have bad knees. That's a common one. Bad knees. Like, why did we just call our knees bad? I think that is such an awful way to talk to our body that I couldn't let that pass by without coming back to it. We're signing morality, just like with food. Food is not bad or good. Food is. And sometimes we eat a little bit for joy and emotions, and we mostly eat for nourishment, right? And so, how can we reframe that? Can you speak to the bad knees language?
Oh, I can totally speak to the bad knees. Totally speak to that. So here's where the thing is. One, if you haven't been hit in the knee or like torn your ACL, torn your meniscus, uh, planted and felt something pop and blow out, it's probably not a knee problem causing your bad knees, because the knees are honestly a simple hinge joint. They just go in one direction, they open, they close. What they do is they take the brunt of biomechanical insufficiency, meaning if our body isn't working perfectly, they take the brunt of the forces from either our ankles or our hips. So when we're looking at the body, there's been a recent shift within the realm of looking at what should be moving, what shouldn't be moving. So we consider ankles a mobile joint, meaning they need to be multi-directional mobile. Knees are a stable joint. They still bend, but they need to be stable. Hips, mobile. Low back, stable. Mid back, mobile. Those type of kind of going up the body back and forth. And this creates our ability to stand upright. Now, when we lose mobility in a joint above or below, the middle stable has to take the brunt of that movement. So when we have, let's say, bad feet, and I don't necessarily mean bad feet, maybe I mean bad shoes. When we make bad shoe choices, and we can get into a conversation of what bad shoes are. I am wearing bad shoes today because they are dang cute. And for the most part, I make good shoe choices. But today, not today. I wanted the cute shoes. When we make choices that force our feet not to move how they're supposed to, our knees have to compensate. And when they compensate, they get overused. And that makes them hurt, which gives us the impression of bad knees. But it's actually our feet that are being naughty, so to speak, or the high heels we chose, or the too narrow of shoe. Because American shoes are very narrow. And when we squish our feet and shift our toes over and we create a bunion, we're not allowing ourselves to propel forward how we are designed to. We're not creating the force. This is a mindset shift, and this happened to me over the last 2 years in understanding how the body moves, because I'm always in the research. I'm always reading. I'm trying to learn new. How do I get better so I can help more people? Is that we are not lifting ourselves off the ground. We are pushing ourselves forward when we're walking. So we need to be able to drive the force through our big toe. So if we can't bend our big toe, if our big toe can't flex and push off, then something else has to pick it up. Is that our Achilles, where we're having Achilles tendinopathies or tendinitis? Are we having front hip pain because our hip flexors are having to drive the movement of lifting our very heavy leg off the ground? What is driving our force and then creating pain in our knees?
Thank you for explaining and articulating so beautifully what is actually occurring when we are saying and insulting our body with calling it bad feet or bad name or bad knees. And I wanted to come back to the terminology with the body in addition to everything you just shared, because I think there's a more loving and conscious way that we could speak to our body versus bad knees or bad feet, and saying my knees need a little love, or my knees have taken the brunt of, or my knees are working really hard for me right now. I'm just inviting you, if you're listening to this and you have a body part that's overcompensating, maybe inviting a little more TLC and gentleness with that area that we need to nurture to invite that healing process in. And then you're also making me think of what you just shared when you brought up the bad feet is the bad shoes we need to talk about. Like, and I love that that this was the day that you chose to wear shoes that your body or feet might pay for it, but you're like, I'm willing to take that risk today because I'm bringing this outfit and it looks good. And I'm all about beauty and fashion. And yes, I like to be comfortable most of the time. And the shutdown of the world took comfort to a whole new level where I'm like, do we really have to get dressed? I mean, I already hated bras. Can we just burn them? And are shoes really a necessity? Right? So, all that said, sometimes we make choices for fashion and beauty instead of the ergonomics and the care of our body. And so, what I would like to ask of you, Dr. Mack, is if you could give us a suggestion on how we would preventatively care for our body when we are making a choice like that. Is there something you're doing before and after? Talk to us, Goose.
Okay, so today I am wearing, they're not high heels, but they have a little bit of a heeled boot and they're a little narrow. So I can kind of feel my toes are a little squished. So tonight when I go home, I'm going to go and I'm going to stretch through my feet. I'm going to stretch all my toes. I'm going to roll them out on a tennis ball. I'm going to show them a little love. If I really get motivated, I'm going to pull out my foot soak and I'm going to do an Epsom salt soak on my feet just to help loosen them up. I also sometimes I love pedicures. Like take down my calluses, get rid of them. I also know today I'm not working. I'm actually not working a sideline. I am pretty much spending most of my time doing some computer work. So I'm going to spend a lot of my time seated. I do have a sit to stand desk. So if I do any standing, I actually will take my shoes off from behind my desk, but I'm not going to be putting a lot of miles in these shoes. They are purely an aesthetic thing versus like a day that I'm going to be out and about. I'm going to wear shoes that keep my feet in a healthy place. So I'm actually going to grab them because I have my healthy shoes with me.
So, for those of you watching on YouTube, she's actually showing her shoes to us on the YouTube channel now.
These are not the cutest things, but they do have a bunch of different patterns and colors. Here's the
Mm-hmm.
key: flat. The heel to toe, there is no difference. And notice how wide. The front of the toe is actually wider than the heel. So it gives my toes plenty of room to spread. And then it's very flexible. So I can roll the whole thing up. So it's almost like I'm barefoot the whole time. So these are what I wear in clinic. This is what I wear when I'm teaching. This is what I wear on sidelines. And again, this isn't a very cute color, but it matches my work wardrobe and my uniform. So that's what I have. I've also seen them in like leopard print because I have those too because they're super cute. So you can get them finding the wide toe base. There are a bunch of different brands. I fully admit to have gotten the Amazon off brand because it was $30 versus $120. And I wanted to get 4 pairs so that I could just stash them places. So when I make bad shoe choice days, I have a pair of good shoes or healthier shoes to put on if I get over wearing the cute shoes and I'm like, oh, my feet need a break. I know I have to walk halfway across campus. I'm going to put on the healthier shoe to do that walk, and then I'll put on the cute shoes again when I get there.
Oh, that was such a good tip. I'm so glad I asked and that you not only had the shoe handy, but you're able to really explain in detail what to look for. Thank you. I think that is so important. And that makes me think of the fact that there also are some high heels these days and some even boots with heels that are ergonomically made from a chiropractic or orthopedic doctor that I have, and I can't think of the brand right now, but I might list some of those resources in our show notes. So thank you. And this moves beautifully into movement. Like you were just talking about walking. First, I want to say before I wrap that piece up, I mean, we can take notes from our fashionista Europeans or New Yorkers who have to deal with weather issues. In their bag, they've always got another pair of shoes. So when they're out in the slow snow, sleet, or rain, or walking through the city, they've got their comfortable walking shoes, and then they've got their stylish pair that they would change to when they get to the location. So we can all do that, right? Next, moving on to movement, and I think I'd like to speak have you speak a little bit about making a healthy choice with movement to preventing injury. I feel like there are so many people that are working out what I would say too hard or too extreme. I always joke that I don't want to work out that hard. And it's not that I'm not fit or, what I want to do movements. Like for me, it's Pilates and dance that I absolutely love. Right. So when I say I don't want to work out that hard, I feel like we've taken things to extremes that can be really unhealthy. And I wonder if you have any suggestions on listening to your body, knowing what is right for you. Are there certain workouts that you're like, you know what, I would avoid, or get some training and, personal trainer working with you in advance to doing certain workouts that we're doing today? Okay, go.
Ooh. So, as to what is the best exercise you could possibly do, it's the one you're willing to do. That is the first. So, if Pilates is your jam bam, do Pilates. If lifting weights is where you find love, joy, and peace, lift weights. If running is your thing, run. Here's where you're right. We sometimes get a little bit too far gone. We do too much. So I think the first place that I see most commonly where people kind of go a little ham, so to speak, is CrossFit. And that's not to say that CrossFit is bad or Olympic lifting or powerlifting is bad. I am the queen of, oh, it's heavy. Can I pick it up and put it down again? Can I do it multiple times? That is my happy place. But the problem is that in CrossFit, they don't necessarily coach you safely on how to do the Olympic lift movements. And they sometimes push you beyond what you're comfortable doing because they set these crazy workouts. I love CrossFit. I'm not saying don't do it. What I am saying is that you got to listen to your body. If you're doing something and it feels wrong, it probably is. Now, when learning how to Olympic lift, I strongly encourage you get a coach that is educated on how to tell you how to do it. And you're going, how do I figure out if they know how? Well, there's actually a certification for that because there's a certification for freaking everything. And it's called a USAW1. That's the bare minimum. You could absolutely have a USAW 2, 3, 4, whatever level, but it's a USAW1. Those are trained Olympic lifting coaches. They actually know how to make that exercise safe so that you can do a snatch, a clean and jerk and not injure yourself. Is that required for someone to be a CrossFit coach? No. They don't have to have that certification to be teaching it, which is why there are injuries. The other thing is that when I'm looking at how do I join a CrossFit gym safely, and I'm sorry to harp on CrossFit, I want to see how they modify their exercises. Because if they give a workout, they should have ways to make it both easier and harder and not make you figure that out on your own. That's how they make it safe. So you can start on an easier scale and then slowly ramp up to the full, big, scary, going to the CrossFit games. Good Lord, those people are fit. Lord have mercy on them. But that's where you need to see that type of scaling. If they're having everybody do the same workout the same way with no scaling, that leads you up to injury if you're not conditioned for it. And that also brings up, how do you start working out? Well, you scale. And this is where it's really hard because when I step away, because sometimes I get super busy, when I step away from weight training, I need to go back to the gym and be kind to myself. I don't need to jump back in right where I was before. Because if I try to do that, what I may have been training for 4 months with and then took 6 months off, if I try to go back and do the same thing, I'm going to get hurt. That also applies to running. That can apply to Pilates. That can apply to dance. If you are not consistently working at being that strong, being that mobile, being that flexible, it goes away. And you're going to have to rework to that level. And that's okay. You got to listen to yourself. And you also need to listen to yourself when you need to recover. Make sure you're sleeping, drinking water, and eating an adequate enough amount of calories. So, hey, you heal and can go back to doing the fun things.
I'm so glad that you brought in CrossFit because I didn't want to lead you, but that is exactly what I was feeling and seeing. That's exactly what I was going to speak to. And I wanted to hear your experience and professional opinion. So thank you. That was beautiful. I love everything you shared. They're super impactful.
I mean,
And
for what it's worth, CrossFit is job security for me. Let's be honest.
that's so funny that you say that because when I was running that wellness center I speak about in a past life, a lot of people, or actually yoga instructors that were teaching the what is the hot yoga? I'm having a
Oh, I know what you're talking about. I don't know
what
what
is
it's
that
called.
name? Why are we Bikram? Ding 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 ding. Bikram yoga, where the room is heated. That was one of the injuries that the doctor I spoke about was treating the most, and the teachers were often super injured from overflexing, probably because they would then demo something without stretching. But also, the point I'm bringing this in for is to listen to where you are, meet yourself where you are. As just like Dr. Mack was sharing, if you've stepped away from it for a bit, you got to come back and act like a beginner again, which I think is one of the hardest things to do. But the problem I want to speak to really quickly before we're about to wrap it up, I could just hang out with you for so long, but I know we're coming to time here, is that because the room is heated, it can be absolutely easy to overstretch, overdo, and injure yourself. So, mindfulness, you're not in a competition with anyone, just becoming the best version of yourself right here, right now, in this moment. So, that all said, you've been an absolute plethora of information and such a gift and have shared so much. I seriously, we didn't even get to your story or how you got where you are. I feel like we should bring you back. So if you want me to bring Dr. Mack back, hey, that rhymes. Doc, should we bring Dr. Mack back? So send me some messages. I would love to hear. Before we hang up, I have a couple of quick questions for you. I wonder if you could share with our listeners, is there something that you would go back and whisper in the ear of 20-year-old Melissa and let her know something you wish that someone had told you or that you knew then?
Yes, and it's not really topical to what we've talked about today, but it's don't let people dismiss you so that you form a mask that's not yourself. You have to be your authentic self because the more you hide behind your mask, the harder the burnout is going to hit, and you're going to hit rock bottom before you come out of it. So don't hide who you are because it's unacceptable to someone. You have to be yourself.
That's actually perfectly fitting for the Sacred Beauty lifestyle. The only masks we are wearing are treatment masks for our skin. Okay, guys, you got that? Last but not least at all, what is the big message that you would scream from a mountaintop on repeat? And we would be like, get Dr. Mack off of the mountain, please. Someone take the megaphone.
You got to move. You have to move to live. When we stop, that is when we begin to die. And you can see that with people out in the world. The most active older adults are the ones that are thriving as they age versus the ones that have shrunken and maybe listened to society and, oh, it's time for you to retire and quiet down. And you can see them wilt. Do not let people tell you when you stop moving. Go out and move.
I love it. Thank you so much for sharing your brilliance, your light, your wisdom, your mastery with the Sacred Beauty Lifestyle Podcast. Where can our listeners find you?
Oh, they can find me on Instagram at MacP_clinic. There I have my link tree that has a link to my podcast, my YouTube channel, my clinic, anything and everything. And hey, if you're in the Twin Cities, located in the Southern Metro in Edina, let me come treat you.
Perfect. Thank you so much. I'm Lisa Eddy, your host of the Sacred Beauty Lifestyle Podcast, which is now being shared here on YouTube. I hope this episode brought you insights and inspiration to radiate and shine with confidence. Remember to subscribe so you receive new episodes hot off the press right when they are released. And follow me on Instagram for more juicy tips at I am Lisa Eddy. Also, ladies and gentlemen, when you subscribe, like, and share these episodes, it helps me to get seen by more people. And that means a lot to me because I am committed to reaching millions of women across the globe and waking them up to the sacred beauty lifestyle, owning their true power and beauty both inside and out. Now more than ever, we need more women shining instead of hiding. When we band together, we are unstoppable. This is how we change the world, together. Remember the sacred beauty lifestyle and get on out there and shine. The world needs your light.